everyone, and welcome to my window clings for bird-friendly windows workshop here. We're going to be talking about why birds run into windows. What is it about windows that makes things a little hard for birds? And look at some ways to mitigate those window strikes, those window collisions from happening using art. So it's always a great day when you can use art as an active means of conservation. Ooh, sorry about that. All right. So why is creating bird-friendly windows important? As you can see here by this graph, the annual mortality, so the annual death rate, and this is in millions of birds. This kind of shows you a breakdown of how birds die. What is the cause of death? This was a graph from the Sibley Guides, and it really shows you something very fascinating. A lot of people think that wind turbines are a leading cause of bird deaths, or oil spills, even if you're, especially for waterfowl or marine birds. And this graph really goes to show that that's not the case. The two leading causes are kind of human-made, but accidentally: feral cats and windows. So feral cats is a really big one, with 500 million birds dying annually from that. And kitty cat is a hunter. Kitty cat's a hunter. Kitty cat doesn't understand when we say, no, don't hunt birds. They don't get that. And their natural instinct is to hunt and to catch. And what better, more fun target than a little thing that can fly away? Cats are one of the biggest causes in bird population decrease. So keeping your cats inside is a great first step to conserving birds. Other than, a lot of people say, oh, well, I don't want my cat to stay inside because their natural instincts, and I want them to get exercise. And that's all well and good. A lot of people have solved that problem by creating something called catios, which is like a patio but for cats, where they kind of extend a window area for a cat to feel as if they're outside, or they create think of a greenhouse or a sunroom that's devoted to kitty cat. If that is something that you are that passionate about, creating a patio probably is something that you would be interested in. But there's a lot of reasons to keep your cat inside as well, not just for the safety of birds, but for the safety of cats as well. It's not ingrained in their brain enough to be like, I need to do my natural instinct of hunting. That enrichment through cat toys, through the little mice that move on their own, not an actual mouse, although if you have mice in your house, that's a good way to get rid of them. But the little toy mice that move on their own will kind of help with the enrichment process and that brain function for the cat. You can also avoid that cat having contact with rabies and other diseases, wildlife diseases, from getting into fights with others. And it also prevents your kitty from getting hit by a car, which is really tragic. The number of cats that I see in this area as roadkill is very sad to me, because that's not just a wild animal, but that's something that someone probably had an attachment to, and breaks my little heart. But switching from the cats, because that is a leading factor, is windows. Roughly 1 billion birds are killed each year by window strikes. That's insane to me to think of how many birds that is. And the fact that we still have birds around shows that there's a lot of birds in the world if 1 billion die each year and we still have birds. But that doesn't make it okay. right? We want to conserve these precious species and help them out. This picture here, the circular kind of mandala picture in the background there, that was actually an art installation in a museum in Toronto by Fatal Light Awareness Program, by volunteers from that program who wanted to shed light on the plight that birds are in with hitting windows. So they collected dead birds that had specifically died by colliding with windows and set them in this huge art exhibit for people to really see how powerful this is. This is just what those volunteers collected. This isn't worldwide. Again, 1 billion birds strike the window. Not all of them die, so that's positive, right? The birds that strike the window, they don't all die. 50 to 67% of that are fatal. Which is, it's good news that not all of them are fatal. However, a lot of times people will see a bird run into their window and it falls to the ground. They go out to check on it and the bird is just completely stunned, imaginably. And then the bird is going to get up and it flies away. And a lot of people wait for that cue of, oh, it can still fly. All right, thank goodness, it's okay. That can be the case. However, in many circumstances where a stunned bird gets up and flies away, that bird is still suffering from things like hemorrhaging, which is the internal bleeding, head trauma, neck trauma. Imagine running into something at full speed, right? With your head's down like this and you run into it full speed. They're definitely going to be suffering from some head and neck trauma and other sustained injuries in their wings where they're kind of they're stunned, they get up and fly away, they're like running on adrenaline sort of thing. And then later, whether it's hours or days later, they might wind up dead due to injuries from that window collision. It's very sad. Why does this happen though? Like, you would think that with how many buildings there are in any given area, or the fact that this happens so often, wouldn't you think that they learned? Well, that right there, they might not get the chance to learn. So there's that. And even if they do get the chance to learn and they say, oh, don't run into that building, that's about the extent that memory goes to, is don't run into that building. What about the one right next door, or the one down the street, or that beautiful, beautiful glass museum across town, right? So it's hard to get into their memory if they get to learn about glass. But this diagram to me really, really spoke to me and really showed me how things can be really difficult for birds. Humans are conditioned. Humans have issues with running into glass. If we don't know that the glass is there, it's hard to see through, especially when we like to keep things squeaky clean. This first picture, you have no cues at all that this is a window. You can't see glare. You can't see, for all you know, this was just taken outside, even though there's a glass panel in front of that. You have no idea. That could even be a reflection, zoomed in, right? It's hard for humans to tell, but over time, we've been conditioned. We have social cues. We've created kind of constructs around glass, like door frames or window frames, window panes, to give us a cue that there is glass here. Be careful. Like the push and pull doors, right? They have that metal frame around them and a bar that goes through the middle. But there have been many times that even as an adult, if I'm not paying attention and absentmindedly or out of my peripherals, I go to leave a door, especially in grocery stores that have the automatic sliding doors. Sometimes if I'm not fully paying attention, and maybe this is just me, but I might run into the glass panel and then be like, oops, and then go out the actual door and hope that nobody saw that embarrassing moment. But for humans, for the most part, that's as bad as it's going to get. It's going to be an embarrassing moment that then you think, oh, shoot, now I need to never walk into that store again. They're going to remember that, and it'll live in my brain for all of eternity and wake me up at 3 a.m. Remember that time you did that stupid thing? But that's it. I don't have neck trauma. I don't have head trauma. I don't have internal bleeding from that. But birds, imagine a bird is going to run into that again, full speed. In the second figure, you see the mullions, which are the little strips that separate the window panes. You see them, right? Right away, that gives us a cue that, oh, that's probably glass or a reflection. You can see in this top part right here, there's like a little crack or a little hair. That's not just floating in the sky. That's something on a piece of clear glass. You can see this glare here as well. So all of these things in our brains as conditioned humans tells us that there's glass there, whether it's a reflection or you're looking out the window, that we don't know yet. And now we look at this third panel here. More cues such as it's zoomed out. So now you see the building itself. You see the trees in the foreground. You see the lamppost. You see the cars, the bushes, tell you that this is a reflection. This isn't you looking out into nature, right? So with all of these cues, it's easy for us to figure out what's what. But you can definitely see how something this big might have a hard time being able to figure this out. So birds will run into these windows thinking, oh, I can keep flying, right? If there's a reflection of these beautiful trees, I see nothing wrong with going through those bars on the outside, right? I can fly through them. I can fit through there. Just fly right through. Should be no problem. And they don't realize that it's a reflection. They'll try to get to the habitat on the other side. Or for many birds, especially in the spring, they might see their own reflection and they will start attacking it thinking, oh, that's a competitor. That shouldn't be here. This is my territory and it shouldn't be here. Not realizing it's just them. This is really common in cardinals. So if this spring you get cardinals attacking your windows, I get that at mine, mitigating some of that, because over and over they're exhausting themselves trying to get rid of this competitor that's never going to go away because it's them. They're exhausting themselves. They're using up precious energy. And if they're attacking it, they could be injuring themselves. A lot of times you see them flapping their wings really fast. They could injure their wings. Or if they're pecking really hard at the glass, they could injure their beaks, their necks, their heads. So all of these things kind of lead to window strikes and window collisions. Fortunately, I know that's all really depressing, and the whole 1 billion birds hitting the windows and having so many of those be fatal, that's really depressing. That's really sad, especially when you think of that first graph. But I don't like to dwell on the negative stuff. I want to look at the ways that we can take action in easy ways, right? Not everybody is a conservation scientist or an ecologist or an ornithologist, right? We're not all these crazy scientists that can feel like they're making a change, right? But there's easy things for us to do to be able to mitigate bird and window collisions, right? First thing is vote bird friendly. Easy to do, right? When we see House bills coming through, when we see we're voting for people to sit in our legislature, or we're voting for future presidents, things like this, even like as as down low as like school board. Is your school board going to be thinking of eco-friendly options, right? These are all things that we can do very easily, whether it's going to your polling place or whether it's going to online petitions, things like that. There's ways for us to vote with birds and the environment in mind. I actually found the Bird Safe Buildings Act is something that's going on right now, and its goal is to reduce deaths by creating bird-friendly buildings. So telling construction workers or architects, things like that, that here are the materials that you need to use in order for this building to kind of be up to code, but also to prevent unnecessary wildlife deaths. So I included this link here. abcbirds.org is American Bird Conservation, and you can go there for all sorts of different petitions and advocacy related things. This specific one is to sign on to get this act passed, that bird-friendly buildings will become a normal part of life, which would be great. Not everybody is super into politics and voting, but there's some other things to do, or some things to do in addition to voting eco-friendly. And one that, many of us will love is don't clean. Let that one slide during spring cleaning. Don't spritz off your windows as much, right? Don't be using your Windex. Don't be crazy about polishing it to make it sparkle and shine, right? Because that's really going to confuse birds. But if there's like specks and smudges and it's really dirty in one area, there's a cobweb, that's going to actually help prevent the window strikes by breaking up reflections. And you don't have to, live in squalor. You don't have to have the dirtiest windows, but you just don't make it squeaky, shiny, glittery bright, right? So take a chill pill on the cleaning. Another tip is to add screens. So if your windows are just the glass panels, this is really common in like sunrooms or in like higher end, bigger windows might not have screens. You can add like a mosquito screen, right? Something that when you open your window in the summer, hopefully the birds don't fly in then, but the bugs don't fly in as well. So adding that screen will be helpful. Adding mesh, even if you do have a screen, it might be really close to the window anyway, and the birds will want a little bit more of a buffer that if they fly into, they kind of bounce off instead. But you can actually get a mesh that goes on the outside of your house that comes like this far off of the windows, just as a mesh. Some people say that detracts from their view outside, even if it's really fine. Personally, I don't notice when a screen is up, so I would just want something that fine and easy, but that may not be your thing. Mylar strips, like the really shiny, think of what helium balloons are made out of, the really shiny, like silvery stuff. You can cut them in strips and hang them from your windows, and they're going to blow in the breeze and they're going to deter birds from flying in that area. Some people are like pie tins. Think of like an aluminum pie tin with a circle cut out so it catches the wind blowing around. Those are fun, easy to make, easy to put up. Again, they might not look the prettiest though. Another thing to do is turning off lights at night. And this may seem really weird, but studies have been done. And if you remember the FLAP organization, Fatal Light Awareness Program that I had mentioned that did the art installation earlier, they did some studies that look at how light will attract birds as they're passing through. And that means if there's a bunch of lights on, you're in now more of a residential area, there's more windows. So the chance of a collision is going to skyrocket. So turning off lights at night will prevent the birds from, coming to your area, checking out that window, being drawn to it. A lot of us turn off lights at night anyway, but think of things like if you have Christmas lights on your bushes, things like that, unplug that at night. Or like once you go to bed, are done appreciating it. This is really something that I don't understand about stores. A lot of storefronts will keep their lights on, and to me, that's energy inefficient, Plus, now they often have these huge windows that if birds are coming by and all you had to do is turn off the light to deter them from coming to your area, that seems like a simple thing to do. And then finally, a really easy way is to add window clings, window decals. And these are not only are they fun to make, they're you get a creative outlet, you're making them, but they're also kind of pretty if you make them and they're colorful and they look like flowers or butterflies. They're really cool to have. You can get them at I see them at giant grocery stores. For like Valentine's Day, you can get the little heart gummies to slap on your windows, things like that. Or like vinyl clings. That would do it. I just enjoy the art of it and actually the creating part. So today, now that you've learned kind of why this is important, we're going to talk about some tips to help really ensure that your window cling itself is as successful as it can be at deterring birds. But we're going to do some conservation and some wildlife protection by doing art. You are going to need puffy paint, and this specifically you will need 3D paint. So if you get a different brand, it's not puffy paint, just make sure it does say 3D because you're going to want it to kind of raise and not splooge out as it dries. And ideally, it's going to have a fine tip that you can use to actually draw with. You're going to want sheet protectors, and this is going to be your drying base, what you actually put the paint on. And something like paper or cardboard to be a peeling protector so that while you're peeling your dried puffy paint off of the sheet protector, you're preventing the puffy paint from sticking to itself as you pull back. These are optional, but I find them helpful. Of color mixing tools, especially if you only have like primary colored paints, easy to create purples and oranges and teals. And then outlines to trace, which is really great because you can just slide that in your sheet protector and trace it. Methods, simple enough. You're going to stick your little tracing paper inside of your sheet protector, and then you choose whatever colors you want and you draw on top of the sheet protector. You want it to be thick. You want it to be goopy. The thicker it is, the easier it's going to be to peel and to stick up on the window. And don't worry, I will have like a video portion where you see me going through actually making it, what it's going to look like, things like that. You want it to fully dry, and I'm stressing fully dry. If you try to peel it off before it's really, really dry, it's going to be so hard to peel, and you're just going to wind up stretching the paint and causing it to rip and tear in areas. So really wait for it to fully dry. This could take like 24 hours. So, if you do it now, check it tomorrow morning, sort of thing. Once you've peeled it off, you kind of just take your piece of paper and fold it over as you peel. That way it doesn't touch itself. These are window clings. They're made to stick to things, right? They will stick to themselves, and it's like duct tape. Once it's stuck to itself, it's really hard, if not impossible, to unstick it from itself. And then once you have it off, usually on your like little piece of paper or something, you just slap that on the window and spread the little edges out to make it look good. That's all it is. It's very easy. Very, very easy. The only issue, the hardest part, at least for me, was peeling it off without it sticking to itself. But otherwise, even that wasn't too challenging. I've got some tips here to make sure that your window clings are as successful at reducing bird strikes as possible. You want to make sure that they are large enough to be seen from 10 feet away. So before you peel your sticky off, maybe hold it up on the window, like tape your sheet protector to the window and go outside and see, can you see it from 10 feet away? Can you see it from 20 feet away? The farther away you can see it, the better it's going to be for birds. You also want to use the 2" by 4" rule for spacing. So you can see in this picture here, I have the mullions, or those kind of borders in between the individual panes of glass. And I stuck the window cling right in the middle because birds are going to think, oh, I can just fly through those bars. But if it's only like 2 inches or 4 inches wide, chances are the bird's going to say, I can't fly through that. Never mind. And it will change direction. It will veer off. So you want to make sure that you're adding enough of the window clings to prevent the bird from thinking that they can fly through any sort of space. You see here, I have 3 panels. Above and below the window cling, it's kind of a square panel here, is what I have at my house that I'm living at right now. So 1 window cling per panel was enough to make sure that there's no glass. There's like 1.5 inches, the window cling, 1.5 inches, the mullion, So you want to use that sort of measurement for spacing in between window clings or spacing in between the mullions as well. And then make sure that they are on any sort of window near a bird feeder, near a bird bath, or near where you have gardens that birds are going to be attracted to coming to, because those are obviously high traffic areas. If you have bird feeders right outside your window, as most people who have bird feeders do, because they want to see them, that's kind of the point. You put up a bird feeder, you get to have your morning coffee and watch them, right? This is now a high traffic area. If a hawk comes and sits on a tree to watch and the birds scatter really quickly, they might panic, see the reflection, and run into your window. So making sure that they're up in your high traffic areas will help to make those areas as safe as possible. So next we are going to watch the tutorial I have for you, and this takes you through step by step. You guys get to see how I made the window clings with the paint, how I mixed the colors, how long I let it dry, how I unstuck it. You'll actually get to see the peeling process, which again, I thought was the hardest part. So we'll take a look at that. And I'm also going to answer at the very end. I'm going to answer some questions, some frequently asked questions and questions that I have received about window clings and bird strikes in general. So hopefully your questions get asked. If they don't, please feel free to reach out. You can email me at mjacobs, M for Marissa, jacobs@theartofecology.com. I'd love to answer any of your questions, help you out with that. And that could be, the bird related or the window cling related. Either way, I'd love to help you out. And I'd also love to see your finished window cling. So, this is a cool piece of art that you get to have on display. And it's functional art, which is the best kind of art, I think. So I'd love to see it. You can tag me in any of your posts on social media with hashtag the Art of Ecology. I'll get to see it that way, or you can email your pictures to me. I'd love to see them. I'd love to share them and inspire other people to, care about bird conservation and help protect birds through art. You're going to want to take your black puffy paint to do the outside. Just like a coloring page, you want to create an outline. All have our outline. Now you can start filling it in. If you want to blend colors, you can use toothpicks or Q-tips, cotton swabs, things like that to blend your colors. So the front portion may look very globby and puffy, you know, because this is puffy paint. But what is on the other side when you peel this off is going to be very smooth, and that's going to be the part that actually sticks to the window. Alright, so now I am going to do some blending with orange in here, and we'll see what happens. And then all you're going to do is you're just going to keep working your way around until the whole thing has been filled with paint. Once you're done with your design, you're going to want to fully let it dry. And we're going to put it on the window. When you peel these up, just keep in mind they are really sticky, so they will stick to themselves. So using a piece of paper to kind of flip and fold back like this can really be a help so it doesn't stick to itself. Once you have it off of the sheet, now you can put it on the window. So this is the flat side. So gently pick it up if so. Pick it up. And you can just stick it to your window. And any spot that you pull too hard or you're not gentle with, you can see that there's like a little hole that pops up, but overall we have got a cool little window cling. Alright, so we've got some questions here that I'm going to answer. These came up. And also, these are just some frequently asked questions as well that have been added in here, hopefully to give you some extra background and make sure that your window clings and the way that you set them up are as big of a success as possible. First question has to do with the window clings itself and its creation. So how do you prevent air bubbles or separation during drying? And you can see here in this picture that there are some little, this was an air bubble, this was an air bubble, anywhere that you can kind of see through to the window a little extra. This is, this section here was caused by separation during drying. But these air bubbles can be prevented if you paint very thickly, right? So as you paint, you know, keep watching as air bubbles form. It might take a little bit of time, like 5, 10, 15 even minutes. As you paint, go back and add just some extra paint on top of that. They're really common as well when you are mixing paint and you're using like toothpicks or cotton swabs to mix the paint. You're adding and stirring air in there. So just go back over and add some extra paint to get rid of those bubbles. The separation, that happens when you don't wait for the cling to fully dry before trying to peel it up. And this was one of my first window clings that I made, so I wasn't quite aware of the drying time that was needed, and I had started peeling it up. And as I peeled back, the different colors, like where the black versus the blues and reds mixed together, those started to rip and separate as I peeled back. Biggest way to do that, if that starts happening, just leave it be for another couple of hours. I started peeling this in the morning. I left it go until the afternoon, and then it peeled up perfectly time and the rest didn't separate. Now we get into the bird-related questions. First question was a really great one. Is one species more likely to hit a window than another? This is a really great question. And the answer is surprisingly yes. A study was done that compared bird species abundance in one area to the number of individuals found dead. And it showed that there were 10 species that were bizarrely more likely to have a window strike be fatal than other birds. And these are usually migratory songbirds just because they're moving a lot. They're going to be, again, they're traveling at night. So they're going to be attracted to those places that have that light on at night. So more of the residential or the business areas, and they're going to be more likely to run into windows. But those 10 species were the black-throated blue warbler, ovenbird, ruby-throated hummingbird, yellow-bellied sapsucker, wood thrush, gray catbird, common yellowthroat, brown thrasher, white-breasted nuthatch, and the American goldfinch. These were all found to be way more likely to hit a window and have it be fatal than other bird species. And out of those migratory birds, usually insect eaters or forest dwellers will suffer the most. And that's because they are used to flying through very small spaces. If you think of a forest, there's so many trees, so many shrubs, understory plants to have to figure out how to navigate. And they are very adept at it. So when they are flying through residential areas and they have those thin mullions on windows with, even a 5-inch panel, these small birds that don't have a 5-inch wingspan feel very confident in their ability to navigate through those tight spaces. And then they find out that those tight spaces are actually glass. When is the most common time for birds to hit windows? Another great question. When I was looking, it didn't seem necessarily like a time of day really outweighed one or the other, because you had a lot of stuff happening at night, early morning, especially for the birds that were attracted by light. But there were also plenty of times throughout the rest of the day as birds go to feeders or they spend time in gardens, they're going to bird baths, things like that as well, that also resulted in fatalities. However, I did find that time of year seemed to play a factor, even a small one. And that time of year seemed to be November. This is when fall migration is happening. So you're getting those migratory birds coming through, especially with the light again. But you also are having, according to the Nashville Zoo, this is the time of year when any sort of fruit trees, think of like crab apples or like general apples, any orchard trees. This is the time of year when the fruits are dropping from the trees and birds are still picking them up. And the Nashville Zoo kind of equated it to being drunk and like driving drunk, except these birds are flying drunk. These fruits that have fallen are starting to ferment and rot now on the ground, and the birds don't really care too much. They're going to be pecking at it, still eating it. And that fermented fruit combo with the migration time of year results in a lot of silly birds thinking that they can fly, using some bad judgment, and whacking themselves on windows. The study done didn't show a tremendous spike in bird strikes during November, but it was enough to stand out a little bit. And the last question: what should you do if you do find a stunned bird that collided with a window? Another really great question that I didn't address in the program. If you do find a bird, a lot of times I did mention that they'll smack the window and they might fall back stunned, and then we see them and they fly off and we think, oh, that's great, they're going to be okay. That might not be the case. And if you have the ability to and the confidence to, you can try to take that bird to a trained, certified wildlife rehabilitator. So if they strike the window and they fall back stunned, you can get a small cardboard box, like a shoebox is a good size for a bird, filled with towels, paper towels, something soft, very soft, and close the lid on it and put it in a dark place, like inside of a closet, until you have the ability to get to the wildlife rehabilitation center or they come pick it up from you. And this is just because they just went through a really stressful situation, right? They just injured themselves. Even if they're going to survive, they still have some sort of neck and head trauma that needs to be addressed. What can happen is when you pick them up, you're fussing with them, you're trying to get them in a box, that is now adding extra stress that these birds freak out. Having that dark, calm, quiet place and having the towels in a small box so it doesn't have room to flutter about, freak out, cause further injury, can actually help to calm the bird down a little bit. This is especially great for if you find the bird right as you're leaving to go to work. You might not have the time to go take it somewhere, but when you put it inside real quick, put it in a closet in a cool, dark, calm place until you have the time. Don't try to feed it or care for it on your own unless you are a trained wildlife rehabilitator. There's so many nuances of wildlife care, of being able to assess the damage. They know the exact diet of the bird, and birds' diets do change throughout the year. So unless you're trained, please don't try to care for the bird yourself. There's plenty of great wildlife rehabilitators out there. You can easily find ones in your area from a Google search. I know here in Bucks County, we have the ARC, which is in the Chalfont area. And there's also the Mercer County Wildlife Center, which is in New Jersey. But from where I am here in Bucks County, you could get to both of them and be totally okay. But if you're not in my locality, you can definitely Google wildlife rehabilitation centers near me and find a good list of trained, certified members that will be able to handle the bird, know what the bird needs the best, and be able to release it if possible. But thank you so much for your questions. They were really great, and I hope that they all help you to conserve birds and prevent those window strikes from happening. If I missed your question, please feel free to email me, and I'd love to get your response, add it to this video if possible, or just put that out there for people to see on a blog post or something like that. But thank you so much, and I hope you'd enjoyed.